Well, I've had this DX-40 for sale for quite a while, but no one has bought it since I didn't know exactly what was wrong with it. Just that it put 20 watts out, and I couldn't seem to find the problem. So what I did was I have another DX-40 that does operate perfectly, and there it is. And this DX-40, I did take some sample readings on it. Rather than look at the schematic, I took the voltages of a DX-40 that actually worked and took some readings, and then I put them on the schematic, and let's see if we can see that. Probably not too clear, but I wrote some of the readings on. So for example, I wrote here that it has 750 volts with no key down, 500 volts with the key down. I wrote that down here. Over here on the screen grid, I wrote that it had 250 volts on CW, 100 volts on phone. So I made some interesting readings. On the grid of the 6146, let's see if we can get that focus. We can't quite get that focused in. On the grid, when I used a Simpson meter on the grid, it detuned it. So I tried the fluke, and the fluke has a higher resistance, so impedance, I should say, impedance. So I was able to get some sort of a reading on that. But the key reading was here, and right here it had a reading of 550 volts on the good DX40 with the key not down, and 200 volts with the key down. But on this DX40, the reading was 50 volts with the key down and 100 volts with the key not down. So that made me somewhat suspicious. I checked the bleeder resistors, and they were okay. So then I got immediately suspicious of the filter capacitors, and if you look at this filter capacitor, you can see, I'm not going to touch it because there is voltage on it right now, but you can see it has a little bit of something coming out of it. So I became a little bit more suspicious of that, and I have now added another capacitor using leads. These are 80 microfarad capacitors at 450 volts, but I need to replace a 400 microfarad at 450 volts. But if you put them in parallel, you basically get what you're supposed to get. So I substituted for this capacitor right here, and to see what would happen. Remember, I was only getting 20 volts out. So now I'll put it in the tune position, and you can hear something because you don't see anything on the power. But now I'm going to put it in the plate position, and you can see I'm getting 60 watts out. So by substitution, I had previously substituted all the tubes, and that had no effect. Of course, I found out in troubleshooting, as I've taught my students, when you fix a part that isn't bad with a new part, it doesn't change anything. You've actually got to fix the part that's actually bad. So I am going to put this up for sale. The price will stay, will be reduced, but the capacitors have to be replaced. If I don't sell it, then of course I'm going to order new capacitors and replace it correctly, because I don't think I want to send it out with this capacitor somehow mounted in there like that. It just really is not going to be a very good idea. So that certainly won't be a good idea. But as you can see, I get about, it says 80 watts out, or 60 watts out, and this meter tends to read a little high. Since there's only 50 watts, 75 watts going in, about 50 watts coming out would be about right. Plus I don't seem to have a particularly good match on the dummy load for whatever reason. So that's troubleshooting the DX40, and I hope you got something out of it. So I hope you want to buy it.